Well, we're back again, and I think I've got to keep this one quick. I just had a quick look, and I think the battery indicator is telling me that there's possibly not much battery left, which therefore means it's nearly flat. Yeah, as you can see, my knowledge of this sort of stuff's getting good. I just thought I'd put a quick video together in answer to people that are aware that Michael Merritt and I went and met with the Transport Minister on Tuesday, and I think some people are we haven't really put much up on Facebook or anything about what happened. So although we were at a VCOS meeting yesterday for All Aboard, the All Aboard campaign, and we shared with them what we felt about the meeting. And but no, we're very pleased to be able to at least get time with the Minister Terry Mulder, the Transport Minister Terry Mulder here in Victoria. And along with Terry, we also had Jim Betts, the Secretary of the Department of Transport, Edmund Carew, who's the Transport Advisor, and Norman Gray, who's the Director of Network Operations with Public Transport Victoria. I think that's his correct title, but Norman Gray. And yeah, it was, and then there was obviously Michael and myself, and we had a festive time. They didn't supply any food, which was most disappointing. I was looking forward to a full-on pig-out session, but that didn't happen. And but at least we had some time with them, which we appreciated. End result of the meeting, I guess, as always, if they'd have offered more, we would have been happy. We sort of believe that there's a lot more that could be done, and they obviously, as always, use the excuse that they don't have enough money, and therefore we get down to tic-tacs about who's right and who's wrong. But one thing we do know is that we're right. We are allowed to have independent access on a public transport system, and there's rules and regulations which actually make it law here in Victoria that that the Department of Transport is obligated to keep up to some standards of accessibility projects so that we can have this access, of which unfortunately they're well and truly behind. Originally the goal was to have it all done by, I think it was around 2032, and that's not going to happen. No way in the world is that going to happen. And I think by the end of this month, as in December, they're supposed to be 55% accessible or something. Well, that's not going to happen either, nowhere near it. And so that's all unfortunate, and they gave us no reassurances at all that there would be any attempt to try and catch up with that. So that was a bit disappointing, although there was a couple of positives at the meeting. I think the first positive was that they know we're not going away. Between Michael and myself and the group that Michael's leading on Facebook, they're fully aware that there are a lot of people involved, and we're just one part of the community that is waiting for accessible transport. And I've got to be careful with the word accessible, because we're talking about independently accessible. Alright, that's our goal, is we want independently accessible public transport. Because if we go and buy a ticket, that ticket says that we have the same eligibility of carriage, or the same rights of carriage, as any other person. And any other person with that ticket has independently accessible public transport. So because we've got the same ticket, then we're allowed to have, and have the right to have, independently accessible transport. And we don't have that. We don't have that anyway whatsoever. And if you bring it down to a couple of super stops or raised platforms for tram, accessible platforms for trams, and I think there's about half a dozen train platforms that have got the accessibility ramp on them, or accessibility platform on them, whatever you want to call it. We're not even, we don't even look at 3% of the complete public transport system as being independently accessible. Now that's atrocious. Like we said to these people at the meeting the other day, how come here in Australia, and as far as we're concerned here in Victoria, we don't have it? And yet we have associates and people that we know that go overseas, and they send back photos of transport that they're travelling around on that is independently accessible. So why is that? What's going on? How come other countries can have it, and yet we're sort of still living back in the days of the boondocks? You know, what's going on? And from my experience and a little bit of knowledge that I have of the other states here in Australia, we're probably one of the the more in front states, and yet so others are a lot worse off than us. And the rural areas, well, I'm just glad I don't live in the country, because we think we've got problems in town, and we have it on a silver platter compared to what people in the country have got. So I really have empathy for people in the country. Did make a comment the other day because the couple of parts of the meeting got a little bit boisterous, and there was some talk about, well, if we can't do better than this, then maybe we need to go out and do another campaign, do a protest. And we were told that if we do protest that we're being quite selfish, so we asked for an explanation of the term selfish, and what we were told was, and I'm deliberately not mentioning names here because I'm not out to be vindictive towards any person individually. I'm just sort of giving a general course of how the meeting went. And anyway, this person that accused us of being selfish explained that if we were to hold a protest and hold up the trams, that we had to take into consideration the senior citizen that's got an appointment with his specialist and he's counting on the tram to get him to his destination on time, and then we come along and stop the tram, so he's going to miss his appointment. And that's a valid point, there's no doubt about it. There's only one thing wrong, and like I said to this bloke, I said, well, that's not going to happen. He said, why? I said, because the senior citizen can't get on your blasted trams. And he said, what do you mean? I said, because they're inaccessible. Senior citizens are like us. They need accessible public transport. And we didn't have much of an argument for that, and of course he wouldn't, because it's true. And I said, and besides, if we have to do any more campaigns, we're going to be inviting people, more than this. Accessible public transport is not about people with disabilities or people in wheelchairs or anything. It's about accessibility. We're talking about accessibility, and that covers rather a wide segment of the community. It covers obviously people with disabilities, in particular those in wheelchairs, but there's other disabilities around that have walking aids, hearing aids and whatever that require independently accessible public transport. There's mums with pushers. I'm sure a mum with a pusher would much sooner just be able to wheel that pusher onto the tram or onto the train or onto a bus without having to wrestle and trying to lift it and everything, especially when she's got someone in the pusher and then she's got another three hanging onto the straps hanging off the side of the pusher or whatever. And then we've got our senior citizens or any person really that is unstable on their feet, and that could be a local athlete who had an injury playing his sport last weekend, who is now on crutches for a month or two. So we're not just talking about wheelchair access, we're talking about independently accessible public transport for all abilities. All ability accessibility is what we're talking about. And so we sort of, and then we got the comment made that, we've only been in for 2 years. And I said, I think you've been in a bit longer than that over the years, because they were saying the previous government's been in for X amount of time. And they wrecked it all. Well, I said, no, it goes back a lot further than that. You need to understand, wheelchairs were designed before push bikes. So people have been using wheelchairs longer than what they've been using push bikes. And people that ride push bikes ride them because they want to. People that use wheelchairs use them because they need to. And yet, and after all these years, you still don't have independently accessible public transport, even though you've known that wheelchairs have been out there and people use them. And so that argument that you've only been in government for 2 years, that's just a load of hogwash. That's just a diversionary tactic. And so once again that subject sort of got dropped and we moved on again. I don't know, it just seems to me that every time you challenge them on their comment, and if you challenge them with a bit of common sense and a fairly I won't say a constructive argument, but constructive comments maybe, they seem to change the topic. I don't know. Is it that a diversionary tactic? Maybe so, maybe so. But there is some good news. Here in Victoria, there were some stations that were built in the latter days of the previous government where they took out the ramps, they put in lifts, and that's great, other than if the lifts break down, you can't get off the platforms. So that was, so this government has seen fit to work on a few of those stations and put ramps in, and now all new stations, from what we've been led to believe, especially above ground ones. Apparently there's some technicalities with underground ones, but above ground ones are all going to have lifts, ramps and stairs. Although it was brought up at the VCOS meeting yesterday, why are stairs compulsory? If you've got lifts and ramps, why do you need stairs? That's a good point. That's a jolly good point, because everybody can use lifts and ramps, or lifts and or ramps. It's only the stairs that segregate segments of the community. Now I thought that was a jolly good point. But anyway, and they've got plans. There's a heap more, well not a heap more, but there's quite a few. They've got in plans to put out more access stops for the low floor trams out in the suburbs. We're going to see some in Richmond early next year. And they're looking at various different locations around town. Like I said right at the start, is this all happening quick enough? No, it's not. We know that, and so we've just got to keep pressure on them and keep pushing them. They're targeting, or they're spotting out now 40 different railway stations apparently around town that they're going to put these raised platforms, so we've got level access onto the trains. They're looking at 40 different stations at the moment. They're doing surveys and whatever to get the 40 hotspots. So there's definitely things that are happening, so it's not as if nothing's happening, but once again we all know it needs to happen faster and there needs to be more of it, and we all need independently accessible transport for all ability, and we need it now. Yeah, hope you all have a great day. And notice how I've got no reflections on the glasses now. See, it's just good looks. No good looks reflection, good looks reflection, just good looks. Okay, so live with it, live with it. That's because I shut the windows and turned the camera around the other way. Alright, you have a great day, good talking to you, and yeah, we'll get back to you all later. Thanks.